Thank you very much, Professor Spoonley. I'll just go straight without ado to Juliet Moses, final speaker. Thank you.
Thank you to our esteemed panellists. Kia ora koutou, assalamu alaikum, shalom. I'm not an academic. I'm the only person on this panel who isn't an academic. I'm here as a member and spokesperson of a community that faces ongoing threats from a number of sources and ideologies, which we've heard about today. I am also a trustee of the Astor Foundation, a charity that combats religious and racial disharmony and extremism and seeks to promote social cohesion. 3 things I'll cover briefly today. Firstly, I'll make a few general comments on what I think we should aim for as a society, then how we build the society we want, and then I thought I'd also give some specific examples of some initiatives that I've been involved in those different capacities I just mentioned. As we've heard, there's no one pathway to extremism or terrorism. I've learned quite a bit from reading about Christian Piccolini, who is an American man who is a former neo-Nazi. He's reformed himself, and he does a lot of work in this space now, helping to reform other people. He said extremism is usually motivated by a desire for identity, purpose, and community. Usually there is a sense of isolation, victimhood, and disempowerment. So I think to counter extremist ideologies, we must also offer identity, purpose, and community. We must have a collective identity as a nation that gives every individual a sense of belonging, inclusion, and empowerment. We must find a vision for the future and build a society that unites us all while allowing space for difference. In other words, unity, not uniformity. This model of society emphasises, and we've heard a lot about this today actually, responsibilities as well as rights. We all have a role to play, and we must all have a role to play and valid contributions to make in building the nation we want. My concern about the current zeitgeist, if you want to call it that, is that it's building walls, not bridges between people. It focuses on what divides more than what unites, and it brings about segregation, not integration. I do fear that there is a particular fixation at the moment on whiteness as a source of evil. And I think we have to allow, and I understand why that might be, as a form of, it feels like a form of redress or justice. But I think we need to remember that every person, no matter what their skin colour, no matter what their race or religion, has inherent dignity, and we have to offer them as such, or honour them as such. And I think what Sarah said before is very important to remember, that Pakeha is an ethnicity in itself. And I say this, by the way, as a person who is not considered to be white by white supremacists, because I'm Jewish. So how do we build? I think we build, and again this is something that Professor Spoonley just said, from the bottom up and from the top down. It's a whole of society approach. We must all take responsibility. So I've got a few specific thoughts on this. I've got 4 points that I think government and agencies need to think about. The first thing is to consistently model the values that they want, show leadership. They have to bring people along slowly, give them time to get used to new ideas and new ways of doing things. As we've heard a lot about today, engender trust and confidence, but also, as someone said, that's a two-way process. So also put trust and confidence in the public. We need to hear leaders condemn all support for terrorism and all terrorism equally, whatever the source, target and circumstances, and even when it is not politically expedient to do so. Hezbollah and Hamas, their military wings, are prescribed terror organisations in New Zealand. But we saw a rally in support of Hezbollah on Queen Street in 2018. 2018. And just in May, we heard a call at a rally on Queen Street in Auckland for globalising the Intifada.
Intifada! 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 Globalise the Intifada!
And the point I want to make here, which is very relevant, is that I hope we could all agree that there is no place to import. That there is no place to import.
Two, Recommendation 36 of Royal Commission Report is about civic literacy and self-regulation. We should teach civics in school, rights and responsibilities, what our society looks like and what we want it to be. There are websites like the Anti-Defamation League with toolkits for teachers to teach students how to identify propaganda, conspiracy theories, how algorithmic bias works, etc. We must also teach critical thinking, emphasising liberal values, including democracy, the rule of law, freedom of speech, individual liberty, and mutual respect and tolerance of different faiths, ethnicities, and beliefs, recognising, of course, that Maori have special status as our indigenous people and teaching te ao Maori. The third point is that the government and agencies should provide ongoing support, wraparound services to refugees so that they can integrate, not assimilate, so that they don't feel isolated or unsupported. It is our responsibility, if inviting them into our home, to make them feel welcome, which refers back to what Professor McIntosh was discussing, manaakitanga. 4. The government should listen to, empower and support grassroots organisations and civil society. Communities shouldn't have to in an ideal world, but unfortunately we do need to work to make other New Zealanders not feel fear or mistrust or threatened.
Have to, but unfortunately I think we do need to work to make other New Zealanders not feel fear or mistrust or threatened. We need to make them aware of our contributions to the country we call home, as we've just heard. We need to be normalised. We need to tell our stories. And I think the media also has a part to play with that as well. But there is no substitute for meeting others, for face-to-face dialogue, for connection, for, as we heard before, emphatic engagement, discovering shared humanity and values, and alliance building. Extremism is based on dehumanising others, and meeting people always just inherently humanises others. Going back to Christian Piccolini before, the former neo-Nazi, he said the turning point came for him when he opened a music shop, and people came in, as he later discovered, deliberately to challenge him because they knew he was a neo-Nazi. So people of colour, Jewish people, gay people came to challenge him, but they did it compassionately, not aggressively. And he said for the first time he meaningfully interacted with the people who he thought he hated. People treating him with compassion had the most powerful transformative effect on him. And he says, meeting on a fundamental human level is still the most powerful thing that I've seen break hate. So just on a few particular initiatives that I've been involved in, I just thought it would be helpful to give a few examples. Firstly, I'd like to talk about the relationship between the Muslim community and the Jewish community. That's always been strong, but since the mosque attacks has become stronger, and we've worked hard on that and given a lot of support to each other. So some of the things we've done, we've put out, FIANZ and the Jewish Council have put out joint press releases. So for example, last year we put out one in support of the Uyghur people. We've had dinners together, we've attended events together. We were very honoured to have many members of the Muslim community at the UN's Holocaust Remembrance Day service in Auckland earlier this year, and then some of us had dinner afterwards. Interfaith panels, security coordination. We also, the Jewish community, put together a fund called the Abrahamic Fund, which was to help with the sort of relief and support effort after the Christchurch attacks, and that came from Jewish communities around the world and here, particularly from the Pittsburgh Jewish community that had itself suffered a white supremacist attack on a synagogue in 2018 in which 11 people were killed. Thank you. So I think it's really important, just as one example, that we continue working together, both because it helps to deal with any extremism within our own communities, but more importantly, because we are stronger together dealing with our common enemy, which is white supremacism and other forms of hate. So I just want to acknowledge the Muslim community members here today and thank you for that. Some other examples that I've been involved in with the Astor Foundation. We put on a shared table event, which is an intercultural program aimed at breaking down barriers, stereotypes and prejudices, which people from all ages and backgrounds come together at to share stories and food from their cultures. We do this through Auckland University, bringing students together, particularly of Muslim, Christian and Jewish backgrounds, but other backgrounds as well. Last year, July last year, a new teaching resource was launched called Just 1 Week. And it's so far had 375 teachers from 262 secondary schools sign up. It aims to teach about the Holocaust and educate students about the very real impacts of discrimination and anti-Semitism from that time by sharing the experiences of 3 survivors who ended up in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and that was developed by the Holocaust Centre of New Zealand. And the third thing that we're doing is in partnership with the Refugees as Survivors NZ organisation and Great Potentials Foundation. The Astor Foundation is delivering a mentoring program to secondary school refugee students in South Auckland. Both the mentors and the mentees are from refugee backgrounds. The mentees are in year 8 or year 13, and the focus is on capability and behaviours and preparing them as relevant for a transition to tertiary education. And actually we've also got a mentoring program providing academic support for refugees at the Victoria University of Wellington. Anyway, so those are a few specific examples and I will finish it there.
Muslim community choosing to return to respect the event as debate continued, with each side having their say.
If we start saying, well, some terrorism is justified and some causes are justified to pursue violence for, then I don't even, why are we having this discussion?
The Imam of Al Noor Mosque,
Yeah, this is racism against us.
walking out in protest. Members of his community attending a Counter Terrorism Conference left hurt
We will only go in if she's out.
and furious
Just close it down. It's a bloody dog fest. I know. So what we would...
over comments made around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.